when there is chaos and hurt and harm around you, when it feels like there is a chorus of voices raising themselves against you, where do you put your trust? I am certain that I am not the only one here who keeps books by their bedside. I always have something on hand there to help me settle into sleep if I need it. One of the books features the art of Chiura Obata. I first got to know Obata's art through my California family and Obata's paintings and woodcuts of the high Sierras of California and of Yosemite. I don't really know anything about art or painting. Obata's work just looks beautiful to me. I just love the colors that he uses. And there's, I don't know, something about the way the lines are drawn. I don't have the language for this. It just speaks to me somehow. Go ahead and show the next one, yeah. Yeah. The approach of a rainstorm, this is in Yosemite Park someplace. You can leave that up there for a little while. Obata was born in Japan in the mid-1880s. He emigrated to the United States in 1903. He lived through the San Francisco earthquake and fire of 1906. He lived through the Depression. In 1933, he gave an address at a meeting of the California School of Fine Art, Society for Women Artists in San Francisco, where he said this: "Nature gives us endless rhythm and harmony in any circumstance, not only when we are on a joyous path, but even in the depth of despair, we will see true greatness of beauty and strength, beauty of patience, beauty of sacrifice. Above the borderline of nationality, everybody must feel a deep appreciation toward Mother Earth. If we keep appreciation in the depths of our heart, not only our senses will develop more energetically, but our feeling will become as clear as full moonlight." I've been concerned about the executive orders that our current tyrant-in-chief has signed in his relentless effort to bully everyone he can into obsequiousness before him. With my ears sensitive to the words executive order these days, I happened to notice that this past week was the anniversary of Executive Order 9066, which Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed in 1942 and resulted in the internment of Japanese Americans in concentration camps. That was done by executive order. The order was driven by fear and racism. I note the absence at the time of any concentration camps for German Americans or Italian Americans. In 1942, Chiura Obata and his family were among those forced to these concentration camps. By this time, Obata was a professor of art at the University of California at Berkeley. In the camps, Obata kept on painting and drawing, and he started an art school with 900 students. They moved him to a different camp. He started another art school, 600 students. Nature gives us endless rhythm and harmony in any circumstance, not only when we are on a joyous path, but even in the depths of despair. We will see true greatness of beauty and strength, beauty of patience, and beauty of sacrifice. The book by my bedside is called Topaz Moon, Chiura Obata's Art of the Internment. The art is beautiful and breathtaking. He painted the camps by moonlight, and he sketched and painted the people too. It's a little sketch of people arriving at the camp. Silent moonlight at one of the relocation centers. They called them relocation centers. If we keep appreciation in the depths of our heart, not only our senses will develop more energetically, but our feeling will become as clear as moonlight. Moonlight on the camps there. It's a sketch of people huddling for warmth who've just arrived from Santa Ana. These camps that he was at were located in the high desert. During the summertime, it got up to about 106, 110 degrees sometimes, and during the winter, it got below zero, like 30 degrees. They didn't have enough bedding. They didn't have enough protection against those elements. I'm impressed by the resilience of his spirit under these terrible conditions. I'm impressed by the way the paintings are, well, beautiful, I'll say again. And also at the same time how they don't avoid the reality of the situation. Moonlight over the Topaz War Relocation Center. He just paints and sketches what he sees. His eyes are open to what is happening around him. He feels clearly, and he keeps going. He keeps painting. He kept teaching. Reading the regulations at the camp. New moon over Topaz. When the powers that be rise against you, what can you put your trust in? It seems to me that Chiura Obata put his trust in at least two things. He clearly kept a connection with nature and with the earth. He also had a trust in himself. I see that simply in the fact that he kept painting, he kept sketching, he kept drawing, he kept teaching. He trusted his eyes. He trusted his skills. He let himself be himself. When I think about the history of our Unitarian Universalist theology, it is the Transcendentalists who really urged us to trust in ourselves. That was their innovation. They were pushing back against the tradition in philosophy of the century just previous, of the generation or maybe two just previous to them. The school of philosophy called empiricism, based in the idea that the only stuff that you can know is the stuff that you can measure and perceive through your senses. Our Transcendentalist ancestors answered to that, no, there is knowledge and wisdom and truth that resides within us. There are things that we have intuitive knowledge about, intuitive experience of. Emerson worried that we but half express ourselves and are ashamed of that divine idea which each of us represents. So Emerson urged us, trust thyself. Every heart vibrates to that iron string. Emerson believes the power which resides in you is new in nature, and none but you knows what that is which you can do. Nor do you know until you have tried. Emerson wants you to be you. Ironically, being yourself is also what truly connects you to others and the fundamental nature of things. Emerson knows to believe your own thought, he says, to believe that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all, that is genius. Speak your latent conviction, and it shall be the most universal sense, for the inmost in due time becomes the outmost. It can be really difficult, though, trusting yourself. As much as we are a society that privileges the individual, we are also a society that tries to stamp out difference. That is what President Trump's executive order trying to vanish transgender people is trying to do. That is what the government of the state of Iowa is trying to do by passing a law to exclude transgender people from civil rights protections. That is what another recent executive order does in its proclamation that English and only English is the language of America. There is something that we're all supposed to be, and God forbid if we are different, and that's the theology. That's the belief that God does not tolerate difference. That is a bully's God. You might find it interesting to know that there's actually been a study conducted that concludes that over the span of 20 years, from the year 2000 to 2020, there has been a decline in this country in our quest for individuality. There has been a rising tide of a desire for conformity or blending in. Uniqueness is dangerous. It's in being just like everybody else that you're safe. How do you resist a crowd of voices raised against you? This makes me think about the story of the enlightenment of the Buddha. The Buddha-to-be goes through a number of experiences, and he tries out a number of different approaches to enlightenment. Finally, he comes to the Bodhi tree. The one who will be Buddha, Gautama, walks around the tree, circling it. He's trying to find a place where other people have found enlightenment before him. Every time he pauses at one place around the tree, the earth doesn't let him stay there. It heaves and sinks and forces him to move on. That's not the place. Finally, on the east side of the tree, the ground remains calm. The ground is still. And the Buddha-to-be sits. The religious scholar Karen Armstrong says, the text emphasizes the fantastic shuddering of the earth as Gautama circled the Bodhi tree to remind us not to read this story literally. The immovable spot is that psychological state which enables us to see the world and ourselves in perfect balance. Sitting there in balance, Gautama intimidates the god Mara. Mara, the god of delusion, confronts Gautama with fierce storms and an army of soldiers. Mara tells Gautama that that spot by the Bodhi tree, that belongs to me. And in lockstep support of him, Mara's soldiers all shout together, I am his witness. This confrontation between Gautama and Mara is so frightening that not only aren't there any people around him, there have been some gods hanging around, really curious and eager to see if Gautama is going to achieve enlightenment, but they're freaked out and run off too. The Buddha is on his own. As Karen Armstrong tells the story, Gautama did something out of the ordinary, something that other leaders didn't do. He asked for help. Reaching out with his right hand to touch the ground, he begged the earth to testify to his past acts of compassion. With a shattering roar, the earth replied, I bear you witness. in terror. Mara, who was riding an elephant, Mara's elephant fell to its knees, his soldiers deserted, running in fear in all directions. And that moment of touching the earth, that's the moment of the Buddha's enlightenment. That's why in so many depictions of the Buddha, he's sitting cross-legged on the ground, reaching to touch the ground with his right hand. Let's see one of those. Notice that? Next time you see an image of the Buddha sitting in that meditation pose, look for his right hand. It's probably touching the ground. Karen Armstrong says that this story of the Buddha is about how even though the world seems to be ruled by the violence of Mara and his army, it is the compassionate Buddha who is most truly in tune with the basic laws of existence. Where can you put your trust when all around you seems to be calling out against you? Chiura Obata put his trust in himself and the earth. Ralph Waldo Emerson does the same, though he is confronting nothing anywhere close to what Obata had to confront. Emerson and the other Transcendentalists were reading religious texts from the Far East. It seems to me that Emerson and the other Transcendentalists put those ideas together from those traditions of Hinduism and Buddhism. They put those ideas together with the idea that they already had from their own Christian understanding of God as a God of love, who created humans with and from and out of love, with a bit of the divine in everyone. And the still point. The still point of balance is in trust in nature and life and existence, trust in one's self. This is the teaching of the Transcendentalists, really. Emerson's version of reaching to the earth and asking for his witness is in his first book, Nature. He's not sitting down on the ground, our Ralph Waldo Emerson. No, he's standing right up, but still, he says he's standing on the bare ground. And I think that that's significant. He's in contact with the earth. Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the blithe air and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing. I see all. The currents of the universal being circulate through me. I am part or particle of God. All of these ideas have shaped Unitarian Universalism and inspire a current Unitarian Universalist minister named Joe to be inspired by Chiura Obata. As Unitarian Universalists, we declare that every person is inherently worthy. And people are not worthy because they're all the same. As different as we are or may be from one another, as Unitarian Universalists, we celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. And if the crowd seems to be roaring against you, even if you are on your own and the gods got intimidated and ran off, we can hold appreciation in the depth of our hearts as part of how we cultivate in ourselves a spirit of gratitude and hope. In doing so, we realize we are connected to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. If we are all connected, then we are never really alone, as individual as we may be. And all of life emerges from interdependence. Standing on the bare ground, sitting and reaching for the ground, painting the moon which does not neglect to shine on the concentration camp, we honor the interdependent web of all existence with reverence and with humility. Unitarian Universalism believes in you. Unitarian Universalism puts its trust in you. Unitarian Universalism wants you to be the you that you are, even as it wants to nurture your transformation and growth in spirit. Even though it may feel that all the world and its powers are rising against you, are falling in line behind a god of delusion and fear, find your bare ground. Touch the earth. Find your still earth. Trust thyself. You are not alone, and you are loved. I love you. Unitarian Universalism loves you. May we all come to trust and live in the deepest authenticity of our interdependent selves. May you know yourself to be part or particle of God.